Okay. Hello guys, welcome back to another MV Part 14. I'm back with another video and today I'm going to react to this guy talking about the things that were changing on Animal Crossing.
Horizons used to receive a lot of content updates, with them adding in new features, items, and so much more to the game throughout the course of about 2 years. Now, as you all know, the game is no longer updated by Nintendo and we aren't expecting any updates in the future. However, updates aren't always a positive thing, as sometimes these updates actually remove certain features and content from the game that players really loved. So I've decided to make a compilation video of some of the things that Nintendo has removed from New Horizons since the game first launched within updates. This ranges from things that are more like exploits and glitches to things that were straight up features that Nintendo took away forever. Leave a like if you're ready to find out what these are, and let's jump right into the video. Kapp'n Island tours were one of the big new features introduced in the 2.0 update, and getting Kapp'n back was really exciting. And when we got this feature and knew that we'd be going to these mystery islands, I figured that Nintendo might bring back some of the mystery islands they removed from the Nook Mile Island tours. Most notably, they removed all versions of the Hybrid Flower Islands. Now, these were incredibly popular, and players of the game loved going there back in the early days of New Horizons to collect a bunch of different hybrids. It's not like you could go there and farm a ton of them either, as these islands were pretty rare, but for some reason in a later update, Nintendo decided to remove them from the game forever. Sadly, Nintendo did not add these back to Kapp'n Island tours, which really surprises me, as Kapp'n Island tours do give you a whole bunch of other really crazy resources, including things like star fragments, so the fact that Nintendo decided never to bring back Hybrid Flower Islands was definitely a disappointment. Personally, I found these islands to be some of the most exciting to get, and I know a lot of people will agree with me on that. Most likely Nintendo wanted to make sure people had to work for their hybrid flowers, but at the end of the day, they could still take them from a friend or someone else's island. The fact that these hybrid flower islands were so
Get your snacks or your beverages if you enjoy my videos. Alright, back to the video.
rare as well gave players more of a challenge and more to work towards.
10 fleas can turn into $250,000 in just 1 month. Petco's got your back.
And I definitely spent a ton of Nook Miles back in the day in order to try and get to these islands. It honestly does make me pretty sad that newer players will never have the joy of finding a hybrid flower island. They were so beautiful to find, and honestly there's really nothing else like them now in Animal Crossing New Horizons. So of course you can invite villagers to the campsite using their amiibo cards, but before the 2.0 update you could actually try and invite special characters to the campsite as well and get some really interesting dialogue from them like you can see on the screen. This interaction was completely unique to trying to invite them, so it was a nice little treat for players who tried to do this. However, since the 2.0 update, if you try and invite special characters using this method, you'll simply get a generic error message rather than a unique interaction like I showed off. This means that for quite a lot of special characters in Animal Crossing New Horizons, this unique interaction was completely removed with the update. Honestly, some of these dialogues were really interesting too and provided more insights into the characters, which I really liked, and it definitely gave it much more personality than a simple error message. All in all, the characters which had this interaction removed were Tom Nook, Isabelle, Gulliver, Pascal, Luna, Timmy and Tommy, Mabel, Label, Sable, Kix, Leaf, Reese, Cyrus, Red, Rover, Sahara, Blathers, Celeste, Franklin, Jack, Zipper, Jingle, KK Slider, and also Pave. Now, of course, you could not invite these special characters to come and stay at the campsite. That would have been really cool, just not something that they did, but this was still a really unique and interesting interaction in my opinion. Now, most likely the reason why they did this is because they introduced a ton of new special characters in the update, especially ones that became available to scan in for the first time since their amiibos were added to the game, such as characters like Daisy May, Wilbur, Orville, etc. Even characters like Wisp and Harvey, who have been in the game for a long time, didn't have amiibo cards, so they would have needed to add this interaction for them too. So instead of adding interactions for all the characters which can now be scanned in, which is basically every single special character, they decided to remove the existing ones. Now, I can kind of understand why they did this. It would have been a bit of a job for them to do dialogue for all of these special characters effectively, but it does feel like a shame all the same because this was one of those really neat interactions which you had to go and seek out. I'm willing to bet that a lot of people watching this right now never actually tried this themselves, and honestly, I didn't know that you could do it with any characters other than Tom, Nook, and Isabelle, which I did try in one of my previous videos, so I missed out on a lot of these as well. Thankfully, if you did miss out on them, you can check out the characters pages on Nookopedia where it will go over the dialogue which they would have said before the 2.0 update. Of course, this isn't a major feature, so it's not something to really be annoyed about, but it is a little bit disappointing that rather than adding in the dialogue for these characters, they decided to just remove it. Of course, now though, we can actually invite characters using their amiibo in a new way. You can invite them to the Roost, which is a really cool feature and definitely something that I appreciate in the 2.0 version, especially since you can get so much unique and interesting dialogue here. The 2.0 update definitely did a lot for adding new dialogue to the game, so I can't really complain too much. There is a ton of it, but I wanted to highlight this one as I did think it was really special, and it's just a shame that you can't do it anymore. It's even more interesting when you consider that they actually did update the game with this dialogue before 2.0. For example, Rover wasn't in the game since the start and was introduced in a later update, yet they did add this dialogue for him before the 2.0 update. It's just with version 2.0, I guess they had too much on their plate and they just didn't want to do dialogue for all of these characters, especially since a lot of people may not have even done this themselves, like I said. One thing that we can definitely say has been removed from Animal Crossing New Horizons forever is Nature Day, which was a mini kind of event they introduced Leaf with way back in 2020 when we got our first major update for the game. Now, I really like this event. The fact that you could get a ton of extra Nook Miles by doing all kinds of green tasks around your island was really great, and to this day, I have no clue why they decided to permanently remove this from the game. It wasn't available back in 2021 either, so this basically confirms that we will never ever see Nature Day again in Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm thinking that, like with the Hybrid Flower Islands, maybe Nintendo thought that people could get just too many resources from this and just get way too many Nook Miles, but personally I don't really feel like this event was much of a problem. It was just a nice little bonus for those who wanted to do lots of green stuff around their island. In a weird kind of way, it is cool that it was basically a limited time event that sort of happened in real time and never appeared again. That's very common for games like Pocket Camp, for example, where they all sort of happen in real time. It's a live kind of service, and that Nature Day event was kind of our first real example of that in Animal Crossing New Horizons. That being said though, I definitely would have liked it to return. Nook Miles can be hard enough to get sometimes, so I feel like having a little event which just helps people get more is a really nice thing, and I definitely appreciate it when they added it to the game. They could have even expanded upon this as
Okay. I agree on some of the things. Some of those things he has said, I have not got into those at all in Animal Crossing. The amiibo thing, yes, absolutely. Like, I'm glad if you get Brewer, you can get those amiibos, even the cards of it. Some of it true, so yeah. Anyway, back to the video.
As well, and made it a fully blown event in the game, but it just wasn't meant to be. We did get stuff like the wedding season and the stamp rally in the museum, which are pretty cool, but personally I would have rather had Nature Day where you can actually get some rewards that you really want. I'm definitely speaking for myself there, I know, but I do realize that a lot of people really miss this event too. So as I'm sure you know already, the museum is the most upgradable building in Animal Crossing New Horizons. It has even more upgrades than Nook's Cranny, which is definitely a surprise to longtime fans of the series. However, it seems like for some reason in the 2.0 update, Nintendo has decided to remove one of the upgrades that you can actually get for the museum, and one of the important steps of upgrading it. One of my fellow content creators, Angry Coconut, let me know that they started a brand new island and they upgraded their museum tent into the building. However, this time it went straight to the version with the art gallery rather than the brown version that we saw before 2.0. This means that they completely skipped out on the step of meeting up with Red and then unlocking the art gallery later on. Now, at first I thought this could be some kind of exceptional glitch, but it seems like quite a few different people have experienced this, and Nintendo has made this change just so that unlocking the different stages of the museum will be a bit easier going forward. We got a brand new upgrade in the 2.0 update with Brewster and the Roost finally coming to the game, which was incredibly exciting, but in doing so, it seems like they've removed one of the pass steps. Now, although this is actually really convenient and it means you don't need to go through the hassle of donating enough to unlock the art gallery now, it does seem to mean that going forward you won't be able to get the brown version of the game that you could see before the 2.0 update. Now, I don't know about you, but I actually prefer this design to the one we've got currently. It didn't change when we unlocked the Roost either, so it's basically stayed the same for a really long time. It also means that the step where you meet Crazy Red walking around your island seems to not be a thing anymore either. Red will simply just show up with his art. Maybe once again this somehow ties into the fact that Red now shows up on Harvey's Island, so they felt like this step just wasn't necessary. It's definitely a shame to see this go though, and honestly it does feel a little bit unnecessary to lock us behind one design for the museum. It would be really cool if we could choose which one our museum looks like, if we want the tent, or the more rustic style, or maybe just the current modern style that we have. However, on the flip side, it does mean that it will be easier to unlock the upgrades for the museum. Getting the art gallery was never that easy in past versions. It wasn't the most difficult thing, but it did take a little bit of work, and it seems like now you don't need to do that at all. Now, I'm not quite sure what will happen to this version of the museum if you've still got it on your islands. I'm sure plenty of you still do and that it exists within the game, but it seems like if you start a new file and you didn't already have this particular upgrade, you won't be able to see it again in the future unless Nintendo decides to adjust this later on. Like I said, it could be some kind of glitch, but honestly, it does seem purposely done with the fact the museum got another upgrade in the 2.0 version. Personally, my favorite version was the tent, and I really miss that one. It feels like you see it on your island for literally 2 minutes and then never again, so that's definitely a shame. And it's even sadder that now another version of the museum can't be gotten by new players unless they decide to adjust this. This was something that was beloved by so many players, but unfortunately Nintendo decided for it to be no more. This is of course the 4th layer glitch, which allowed you to decorate on the fabled 4th level in Animal Crossing New Horizons, something that is currently not possible in the game and isn't possible through normal means. Like I said, this was incredibly popular and there were a ton of guides on how to do this online used by many players, and in fact it is actually still possible to access the 4th layer in Animal Crossing New Horizons. This is something you can still do. For example, fellow YouTuber Dazzabound shows off here that you can still reach the 4th level, but weirdly enough, you can't do anything at all. You can't open up your inventory, you can't open up your phone, you're completely limited. You can only really use the D-pad to move around. That makes being up on the 4th level perhaps one of the strangest interactions you can possibly experience in Animal Crossing New Horizons. That is of course because it isn't intended, yet it is still super cool and something that I'm sure a lot of people do want to try. Nowadays with the 2.0 update, you can even put a vine or a ladder up onto the 4th level, but you unfortunately can't climb it. You will have to use the glitch if you want to get up there. So if you can still access the 4th level, what exactly did Nintendo remove or change? Well, sadly you can no longer decorate up here at all, which was much to the disappointment of a lot of people who had put items up here previously. As you can see from this screenshot, the items this player had on the 4th level were abruptly removed with the 2.0 update. Interestingly, all items which were taken away from the 4th level weren't simply destroyed, they were actually sent to players' recycling boxes, so Nintendo made sure to do it so that this glitch didn't completely affect players who had used it. It had been in the game for such a long time in fact. This is one of the longest running glitches in Animal Crossing history.
Why, Nintendo? Just why would you do that for Animal Crossing?
And seemingly Nintendo can't fix it because you can still do it and they know about it, yet they haven't fully patched it out. However, they have found a way to stop you from decorating it and of course taken away the items here. Although this was a glitch and not an official feature, I honestly thought it was so cool, and being able to decorate the 4th level was really great. It allowed you to do even more with terraforming and designing on your island. Since designing is such a core part of Animal Crossing New Horizons, it felt very fitting to be able to do crazy things like this, but sadly Nintendo decided that it was not meant to be. Now this one might actually surprise you. As you can see, you can actually customize your dock. You can put furniture items on there no problem, but for some reason Nintendo removed the ability to add fences on there. Now I definitely think this is a shame, as it was a nice level of customization and you could really make the dock feel special with fences. But it seems like because Nintendo was planning on adding Kapp'n in a later update, which ended up being the 2.0 update, they decided to remove fences. It's hard to say, but I'm guessing that fences might have interrupted how Kapp'n works or something like that. I really don't know, but it does kind of make you wonder given the fact that you can still put furniture items on here. It's not like fences would block Kapp'n off or something, because the same could be said about any furniture items that you could put right in front of him, so it is really confusing. This is one of those things that I would put in the category of not a glitch, but it still almost kind of feels like a glitch, if you know what I mean. It's definitely not the thing I'm the most sad about in this list that they removed. There are things that I'm definitely much more sadder about, as I don't think the majority of people were thinking about putting fences on their docks, let's be honest. But I do think anything that takes away a level of customization in a game that is all about customization is definitely a little bit sad. So I had to mention this one. At the very least, you can still customize your dock quite a lot. I like the fact that you can put all kinds of different furniture items on there, it just makes it feel a little bit more custom. But sadly, fences are not included in that category. Next, we have one that was rather controversial in the Animal Crossing community, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this. It was the star trees. Now, there are some very differing opinions on star trees. I want to mention that star trees were not a legitimate thing within the game. They were technically a hack, I guess. I don't really know what you'd call them. They weren't modding, as they could actually be transferred from player to player. You didn't need to download anything onto your Switch or anything like that. So they were kind of equivalable to what we've got with Treasure Islands, and in fact, I do believe a lot of Treasure Islands did actually give away these star trees. But the fact remains that they were not legitimate items within the game. After lots of players got reported for having these star trees on their dream islands, Nintendo decided to step in and actually ban these completely, removing them from the game so that any star trees would turn into regular trees. And this did upset a lot of players because these were fan favorites, and I can understand why. They're honestly so cool. I think a lot of people were really hoping that Nintendo would turn around and say, okay, we're going to turn these into an actual item in the game. After all, we do have Star Fragments, we have Celeste. I'm sure there's lots of cool things they could have done to explain why Star Fragment trees would exist. But sadly, this was never the case. Although Nintendo did do things like add in the Star Fragment Island with Kapp'n and such, they never made any adjustments to Star Fragment trees. They are still not available in the game to this day unless a player mods their island. To be honest, I'm still not even sure how they actually worked. I really don't understand how players managed to transfer them from one island to another. I guess that kind of implies that they were maybe meant to be a thing in the game to begin with. I've seen different types of items on trees too, so maybe this was a functionality that just was available, but only traditionally through Nintendo's means. Either way, it is definitely a thing of the past now, and Star Fragment trees are no more. It's a really interesting piece of Animal Crossing New Horizons history though, so I couldn't make this video without mentioning this one. Now we have one that I really don't know how to feel about. Nintendo actually removed the ability for players to catalog posters. Now, in case it sounds a bit confusing, what I mean by this is, other players cannot share posters with each other, so you cannot put them down the ground, someone picks them up and is added to their catalog and then they buy it. This is called soft touch trading, I believe. It's something that happens a lot on islands where people don't want to actually give away the items, they just want to help the other player catalog it. But in an update, Nintendo removed the ability to do this with posters. I think the reason for this is because traditionally posters are actually obtained by scanning in amiibos. As you can see, I've scanned in quite a few amiibos of different characters and villages and such, so I have all these posters in my catalog. And given the fact that you have to pay for amiibos, I think Nintendo wanted to keep it this way so people couldn't just get the posters for free. I'm pretty sure you can still actually trade the posters, as in put them down on the ground, someone picks them up and takes them home with them, but in terms of adding to their catalog, I don't believe it counts. They would still have to scan in the amiibo if they wanted to buy more. This isn't really the biggest loss in the game, but I do think it's a shame. I'm honestly not a huge fan of having items locked behind paywalls, and that's kind of what amiibos are. The posters are really cool too, and they were kind of a more accessible version of the pictures that you can get once you've really built up your friendship with certain characters. But sadly, I guess Nintendo just did not see it that way and did not want to have us having these posters for free, basically. Still, I'm sure if you can find something like a Treasure Island, you'll be able to get plenty of the posters you've been looking for, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get them.
This is why I stopped shopping on Amazon, and you should too.
Don't spend another dime on Amazon until you watch this first.
Watch this. I can show you how to get the sweetest deals online when you shop from major retailers like Amazon and Target. You can drop prices automatically.
You just won't be able to catalog them unless you scan in the amiibo yourself somehow. Next, we have a glitch that I never got to try and I'm so sad about. It felt like it lasted for 0.2 seconds. This was the ability to actually put trees on pathways. And as you can see, this is something you can no longer do, which is generally to be expected. I do completely understand actually why Nintendo patched this glitch. I mean, having trees on pathways isn't the most natural thing, although to be fair, in plenty of cities you do actually see that happening, and I feel like that could have been a good feature for those types of islands specifically. But Nintendo took away this glitch fairly promptly and players were no longer able to try it. I'm not quite sure what happened to the trees that were on pathways before the update dropped. I believe either the pathway disappeared below them or maybe the tree itself disappeared. But yes, currently in the game you are no longer able to do that, which is really sad. It does kind of surprise me given the fact there are some other glitches which have been in the game for so long, like the ability to put trees on the sides of cliffs and such, but this one remains gone. Finally, Nintendo removed the original monthly interest rate for the ABD. It went from 0.5% to 0.05%, which is a huge nerf. Basically, it went from 99,000 bells per month to 9,999, which is really sad. On one hand, I kind of get why Nintendo did this. The system was a little bit broken, you were getting so many bells by having interest, but then again, I don't feel like bells are that hard to come by in New Horizons. Nintendo certainly hasn't tried to nerf the turnip exchange, which is probably one of the most broken ways of getting bells, especially if you can go online and trade with other players, so I really don't understand why they would modify this when it wasn't hurting the economy of the game at all. I don't want to give them any ideas about nerfing turnips though in future games, so I'm not going to mention that again. So that was a whole bunch of things that Nintendo has removed from the game since it first launched.
I think that was very interesting, but I agree on some of those statements he said. I don't believe most of those haven't been taken away and stuff, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next Answer Deuces in Vampire 14. Deuces, bye bye. Ciao. Sorry for this.